Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bruce, one of the new co-hosts here at the How You Slice It podcast. You may or may not know who I am, but I'm excited to be part of the Slice team and excited to bring you this podcast and be one of the co-hosts moving forward. And today we have a special episode with George from Uncle G's Pizza. George has 2 food trucks in 1 new brick-and-mortar location. And on the podcast today, we talk about that transition, how he went from food truck to brick-and-mortar, the pros and cons. Because a lot of people go from one or the other, and they don't know which one is better. And we talk about that with George on the podcast today. We talk about the things that he learned in the food truck that has helped him in his new brick-and-mortar location, and also what he wished he would have done differently to start. He does Detroit-style pizza, and he also does New York-style pizza, and he had to get back into the kitchen and really work out the systems because the New York-style pizza was a whole different process and system for him that he's currently still going through. We also touch on our new community that we started over in our Facebook group. We'll link that in the comments section below, so you can go check that out if you want to join. It's for owners only. It's a place for pizza shop owners only to hang out, ask questions, get some information. We're going to be doing a whole lot of content in there. So if you are watching this or listening to this, be sure to check out the notes. We'll link up that Facebook group, and I hope to see you inside. And I'm super excited for what's to come on the How You Slice It podcast with me, one of the co-hosts moving forward. So let's get into today's podcast with George from Uncle G's Pizza. All right, George, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
This is great. So you are somebody that I've had on my podcast before. I'm excited to talk to you and catch up with you. But for everybody who's new to you, where do you do your thing with pizza, and who are you?
Yeah, so
that was
I'm
a terrible
George.
Introduction, by the way. I'm going to work on that.
You're good, man. It's all good. Yeah, I'm George. I'm the owner of Uncle G's Pizza. We are based out of Birmingham, Alabama. 2 food trucks and a recently opened brick-and-mortar, our first brick-and-mortar.
Congratulations. When did you open that?
We opened in late March of this year. So we've been just about 6 months in business, and man, it's different than food trucks. I'm learning a lot.
I laugh out of love, not
Yeah.
out of anything else, because I totally understand how that goes.
Absolutely. It's funny, man. It's like there's good and bad that come with both, you know. So like with the brick and mortar, we're doing a little bit more volume, which is great, but you know, customer service is different, marketing is different. It's just kind of a whole new host of challenges. So
Do you still love it?
yes,
All
yeah,
right, good.
I
That's a
still
good
love
thing.
it.
All right,
Yeah,
that's good. That's the most important thing. Still love it
right
what you're
now
doing
at least.
because, yeah, we'll see what happens in a few years, right?
Exactly.
I've only had a few people that I've talked to that operate both. Some go from one to the other, mostly from like a food truck to a brick and mortar. But I haven't talked to a ton of people who continuously operate both. There's not a lot.
Yeah, we thought about whether or not we wanted to keep the food trucks going, and um, honestly, we really it's kind of out of necessity that we do now because we have loans. Like we have to, like we
Yeah.
need the revenue. So, but beyond that too, like there's a lot of good opportunity, especially in the kind of more mild seasonal months like spring and fall around here get pretty busy with outdoor events and breweries and that kind of thing. And so it can be a little bit slow in like the dead heat of summer, and when it kind of gets chilly. But you know, there's good opportunity to do serve people and kind of market our restaurant throughout the year too.
Yeah, it's a
So
good way to get in front of people who don't know who you are, don't know you have a brick and mortar, right?
exactly.
What kind of pizza do you serve for everybody who's listening or watching this?
So we started out doing Detroit style pizza.
I thought
I
so.
call it Detroit. It's really more of like we call it pan style because anybody that's a pizza nerd and knows the ins and outs of what really makes a true Detroit style a Detroit style could see that we're just a little bit different. But it's a pan style pizza based off of Detroit, and then recently with the opening of this brick and mortar, we started rolling out a New York style, East Coast style as well, and that's been a lot of fun. That dough has been sort of in the works with me for a couple years, and it's always been kind of a dream of mine to do, big 18-inch New York style pizzas. So we've been having fun pushing those out lately as well.
Do you do those on the food truck, or is that just in the brick and mortar?
So we do one size on the food trucks now. We do just like a small 10-inch, like a personal basically. And just because space is limited, um, really boxes. um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, we do 18-inch and 10-inch in the brick and mortar.
Well, so what kind of oven do you have in the food truck, and what kind of oven did you put in the brick and mortar?
So we have peerless ovens in all of them, but they're slightly smaller peerless ovens. They're 23, 24P. So I think they're like 48-inch decks on the food trucks. They're like those quad kind of stacked deck ovens, running off propane on the food trucks, and then we have a much wider, deeper version, also quad quad stack deck, uh, gas powered in the brick and mortar.
That's great. So you have a deck oven on the food trucks, huh?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, they're good ones for food trucks. They're very like compact, and they have a lot of cooking space, a lot of surface area, um, decently thick stones, and running off of propane is obviously ideal for the food truck. I don't know if you know like Izzy's Pizza Bus. They use the same one
Yeah.
that we use. They're Detroit style also.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
follow them on Instagram. I never talked to them yet, but I follow them on Instagram. Probably somebody I should get on the podcast.
yeah, you should. Yeah, he's a good guy, man. He's awesome. I've learned a lot from him. He's helped me a lot.
I love talking to folks like yourself who are doing like multiple things or just one thing really well on the podcast because I learn a ton. And I don't even own a pizzeria anymore. I wish I knew all this stuff back when I operated a pizzeria. That'd been super helpful to me.
Right. Yeah, it's funny, man. Like there's this pizza thing, like when I got into it 5 years ago, I was like, okay, there's a science to it. I can figure it out. And then it's like, you get into it and you realize it's like never ending wealth of knowledge that you're
Yeah,
just like trying to absorb as much as you can.
yeah,
Um, it's crazy. There's so much to learn, so much to know, and it's constantly changing to like the
yeah.
landscape of everything. So it's a lot to keep up with.
It sure is. And it's like you said, it's never ending. It's almost like when you're in the pizzeria, right? When you own a pizzeria, it may be different for a brick and mortar, but I didn't operate I'm sorry, it may be different for a food truck than a brick and mortar. I didn't operate a food truck. I just did the brick and mortar. But for me, it was like every day was kind of the same. Yeah, every Tuesday was Tuesday. There'd be a holiday every once in a while, but the week was kind of the week. It seems like now things are moving way faster than they did back when I was operating, which is a good because trends change. There's more technology to help you, but also hurt you in the third party apps, and there's just so much more information available that you want to be able to do everything you want to do, but sometimes you got to take a step back and be like, all right, do I need to do everything I want to do at this moment, or what should I be focusing on?
Right, right. Yeah, it's funny, man, because like especially now in this digital age that we're in, it's really easy to get sidetracked
Yeah,
and lose focus. So I find the thing that has been helping me is kind of just setting personal, like focus oriented goals. Like, what am I focusing on, today, this week, this month? With the opening of the brick and mortar, it's been a lot of marketing for us because we're trying to figure out it's just a different game now. The food trucks, we it was a lot of operational and logistical stuff to figure out and to pin down. And we were always going where the people already were. So
right.
it marketing wasn't as big of a deal for us in the food truck world. And then when we opened this brick and mortar, I quickly realized that people forget about you. People have very short memories, and you have to constantly remind people that you exist and bring the people in. So we've had to really change gears. I'm very grateful for the food truck years because they enabled us to really smooth out our operations and our workflow, and focus on service and quality control and consistency. Really, really great things to have going into the brick and mortar. But now, like I said, most of my days are off the line and just focusing on marketing and how to trying to figure out how to get people in here and remind people that we exist,
Yeah.
without being annoying and repetitive.
That's so true. I love that. It's funny because when you're in the trenches just starting your business and like you don't have enough money to pay people, you think to yourself, man, I can't wait till I make enough money where I can pay people and I don't have to sit here making pizza all day. And then you get to a point where you make a little bit of money and you can pay people to make pizza and you're like, damn, I don't want to sit in the office. I wish I could just go out there and make pizza all day.
Right. Yeah. So like now my breaks involve me getting up from my desk and going into the kitchen and just kind of messing around and trying to be
Yeah.
creative in that way. It's just totally, it's a different speed. It's a completely different speed.
Yeah.
You talk about it though on your social media though often. It's good reminders for me. Lately you've been putting good stuff in your stories.
Thank you.
Um, Talking about like, you know, not not being an owner and an operator and not just giving yourself a job, like working on the line. Um, I know a lot of chefs, a lot of owners and operators really enjoy being in the trenches. For me, like I really enjoy the business side of all this, and I feel blessed because a lot of chefs get out of the trenches of working on the line and they realize that there's so much business and administrative stuff to take care of and
Yeah.
just really don't like it. Um, and I'm really lucky that I like it because it's a whole new world. There's just so much else to do beyond the food.
Yeah. You're right. You have to like it too. I think that that's important to enjoy it because I mean, you can hire people, right? You can hire people to kind of be the operations person if you like to be in the transition making pizzas. Hire someone to do the books for you and like do the marketing. But if you enjoy doing that, I think the best scenario is you enjoy doing the marketing in the books in like the office stuff, like you enjoy doing that because that's the hardest thing to hire people to do. It's not really hard to hire people. Like, listen, I know it's hard to hire people, but it's not if you can find people that want to work, it's easy to train them how to make a pizza.
Right.
But if you enjoy doing the office work, you can always go into the line and be like, you know what, I'm gonna hang out here and make pizza for the night. You
For
know,
sure.
it's not like it's gonna cost you any more money for you to be there if you want to do that.
Well, and like operations wise, establishing procedures and practices and protocols, systems, developing systems. That's really, again, like you could hire someone, you could bring someone in to establish those things for you, but you kind of lose a little bit of a personal touch on um, figuring out and establishing how your restaurant runs that
Yeah,
way. Um, and a lot of the optimization and tweaking is really, I don't know how you could really bring a consultant in to do those things on a day-to-day level, at least that with the attention to detail that's required, I think, to get things running really optimally.
yeah, and it'd be expensive if you do that. I know what some of these consultants charge is outrageous.
I guess maybe that's kind of where what I'm saying is like it almost seems unrealistic,
Yeah, especially for a small place just starting out, you got to kind of do it yourself. You have
for
to
sure.
understand. It's almost like when I edit videos, right? Like I've doing pizza videos. I don't know if this really correlates, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Hopefully it makes sense. You do a video, right? And you hire an editor. Like in my brain, I know what I want the video to look like. If I send it to an editor, he's going to bring me back something that he thinks I want. But I need to know how to edit the video first and understand the process in order to go to him and be like, this is what I want it to look like. Now,
Right.
here's the raw ingredients. Make it look like this. So you kind
Right.
of need to know how to set up the flow of the kitchen, what the ultimate goal is, like how everybody works, like what the proper times are for prep and how many people you need on first, and then you can go with somebody and be like, all right, Matt, optimize this for me.
And what are the chances that they're going to get it right on the first draft?
Yeah, probably
Like,
not a lot.
so like you're going to have to go back and forth, and then you're spending your time doing that. It's like for me, a lot of the times, if I'm going to be spending time going back and trying to communicate what it is that I want, I may as well just figure out how to do it myself and then be the one to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. You're right though. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. It just
Yeah,
depends
it's
on how
hard.
you want to spend your
It's like
time.
what you like to do too, and like what you have time to do for. But it sounds like you like to do it. And the marketing part is hard. It's not easy, and it's the marketing part is kind of like operating. It's never ending. Like every time you think you figure it out, it changes, and you're like, "Damn, I need to figure it out all over again." I was reading something online, and this could be total bullshit, but I was reading something online that says 70% of customers that come into pizzerias are new customers and will only visit you one time if you
Hmm.
don't follow up with them. Like like you said, they forget about you. So like our
Right.
job is to say, all right, how do we get those people to try us out and then also follow up with them so they don't just become a one-time customer, they become a multi-time customer.
Right. Right. Yeah. The marketing it's so weird because and the thing that I think I struggle with the most is it's really hard to know if your strategies are working or not. And there are certain things that you can do, like tagging a like a deal like with a coupon code and being like, if
Yeah.
you see this ad, then like, use this code or whatever. But it's on a sort of a macro level. It's really like we did a billboard a couple months ago, and it was like $1,000 for the month, and I don't know if we got an ROI on like what kind of ROI we got on that,
Yeah.
like, and that's $1,000 is a lot of money for us right now. We didn't renew it for another month. It may have helped drive business, but it's another one of those things where there's just so many variables. And then there's things outside of our control as well, like the economy is kind
Yeah.
of weird right now. It's very like hot and cold week to week for us in this, at least in this region, this area. And so like I don't know if a campaign, like an email campaign, is succeeding, or if like everybody just got paid and is coming in, it's like
Yeah.
it's really hard to know.
It's super hard. And it's you need data too. And so you're new. Were you doing this for the food trucks or just doing it now with the brick and mortar?
We would send like weekly email campaigns like with our schedule for the food trucks, but we were not nearly as hands-on in terms of like messaging and campaigning.
Yeah.
Um, it's just we just didn't need to be because we would go to places where the crowd was really just built in. People were
Yep.
just there already, like breweries on a Saturday. Like it doesn't matter which food truck is there. There's going to be people there, and they're just going to patronize the food truck that's there. So we would just capitalize on that, capitalize on the crowd that was already there. But now we've really had to shift our focus and develop programming to get people in the door, to give people a reason to come here specifically, as opposed to literally anywhere else.
Right. You know what? That's a great point. Are you in the group that we started, the new owners
Yes.
group? Are you in there?
Yeah.
Go if you're listening to this podcast, George, I know you're in there. I would love for people to go into that group and like brainstorm ideas because this is exactly what we want to do inside that group and be like, all right, how are you doing for sales? Oh, you're slow. Like I talked to 3 people for podcasts this week, and every single one of them just said the same thing that you did. Like it's kind of slow. I want to send emails, but I don't know if they're working. I don't really know what to send. I don't know what worked in the past. But if we're all in that group and someone's like, hey, I sent this email on this day, it said this message and it worked, and I got a huge business return on it, that's something that we could all do because nobody in that group is like in the same town. They're all in
For
different
sure.
areas in the U.S. So
Yeah,
I
I love
like
that.
I love that idea of what you said and like how we can get the data because the
Yeah,
data will win, like you say.
in real
You
time,
built it
in
up,
real
yeah,
time.
yeah, exactly. Because sometimes I do these podcasts and that message goes out a month and a half later, and it's like that's too late.
Right, right. And it's also helpful just like on a morale level too, I think, to know if other places are also slow or what's going on because, you know, if other places are slow and I'm slow, and I know that other places are slow, I don't get as freaked out.
Yeah.
It doesn't worry me as much. But if everybody else is busy and I'm slow, then that indicates to me that I have areas probably that I need to work on.
Yep.
Um,
Either not enough people know what you're doing, or that you're open, or that you're there, or like something's going wrong in the business that you need to fix.
exactly. Yeah, like maybe customer service is lacking in some way or consistency has dropped. It's it, it's good to know when there are things that I need to work on versus okay, everything is just kind of slow right now. And when that happens, inevitably it always swings back the other way. Um, I mean, I've been doing this just barely long enough to know that that's just a fact of the business, a fact of the restaurant business.
Right.
And when things slow down, they do eventually pick up. You just gotta get through it.
Let me ask you a question. So if you have ebbs and flows like that, when it gets slow, do you do things when it's slow that you don't do when it's busy?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we market a lot more aggressively. Um,
So that means it's working.
I think so. But again, so like, yes, it does work, but it's one of those things, it's like a trust fall. Like I will I'll
Yeah.
do it and I'll send the mass text out or I'll send the mass email out and I'll be like, man, I hope this works. I don't know if it's going to work. And then inevitably we'll have a little bit of an uptick.
Yep.
Um, but uh but I haven't found like the magic switch that just like makes us have a crazy, Wednesday night when I just like decide I want that to happen. Like I don't think that exists. Um,
Not yet. Imagine if we could figure that out. Like if we could figure that out and be like, all right, this is what you need to do. If you do it at this day, at this time, this is the results you're gonna get, and you're gonna be happy with it. That'd be unbelievable.
that's like the secret sauce that everybody's looking for, I would imagine.
That's the holy grail of pizza
It
operations, right?
is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Maybe we can figure that out. I mean, there's a lot of smart guys in that group already, and gals, not just guys, everybody.
Yeah.
So maybe we can figure that out. I know I talked to Andrew, who owns Gianni's Pizza, yesterday. He has 7 locations in the New York area, and he was saying the same thing. He was like, it's kind of slow right now. And I think maybe it's because of the election. Every election cycle seems to be a little slower leading up to the election, like the month or two before the election, because there's a lot of uncertainty. Whether it would,
That's
no matter what side you're on, right? No matter what side you're on or who you want to win, once the election happens and we get the winner, it's like, all right, at least I know what direction we're going in.
Yeah, no, I've been saying the exact same thing. And people who have been in business longer than me have said, literally pretty much the exact same thing you just said. Every 4 years, this happens on an election year. It slows way down in the fall, and then it just kind of ramps back up gradually.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I'm in a like a restaurant owner and operator group for Birmingham, Alabama, and people have been saying the same stuff like, hey, is everybody else slow right
Yeah.
now? Like, yeah, we are. It'll pick back up. But I think you're right, man. I think it's the election for sure. I think there's a lot of people who just don't really know what's going to happen. And it's just one of those things. We just got to kind of wait it out.
Yeah, or yeah, we got to figure it out while we're waiting, right? Like it's like back in the day before Facebook groups were a thing. My wife's Greek, so my brother-in-law, her brother was my business partner. He's Greek. She has like 17 Greek cousins because that's what happens when you're Greek, right? And they all own like
Yep.
roast beef pizza shops. So every time somebody got slow, there'd be like this chain of texts and calls to everybody else who owned pizza. Hey, you guys, what'd you guys do last week? Are you guys busy this week? We were so
Right.
slow
Right.
last week, and like everybody, that was like the old school Facebook group. Now everybody just
Right.
does it in the Facebook group, which is a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, we have a big Greek community down here too. I think it's one of those things that's just true almost everywhere you go. A
Totally,
lot of a
totally.
lot of Greek people in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, totally. They are. So up here in the Northeast, it's like well, not in the Northeast, but in the Boston area, like roast beef is the thing, like roast beef sandwiches. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna go do a video with somebody next week, I think, in a roast beef shop because I never showed that. I think it'd be interesting to see, but like that's the thing, like pizza shop roast beefs. All the Greeks around here owned a roast beef shop or something like that.
That's awesome. I was just talking to someone yesterday about how Arby's like way back, like before I was even born, they actually like roasted beef in the restaurant and like would
Really?
slice it. Um, and I feel like maybe you guys have that up there, but I feel like there's opportunity there to like bring that back. Like, what a great concept! Like, have big hunks of like roast beef that you're roasting in house, slicing it hot and fresh to order, like right off the slab,
That's
and
what they
like
do.
making
That's what
sandwich.
the roast beef shops here do.
I think that's such a great idea.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have that down here, so like I don't know. Maybe that's the next concept.
The problem with that nowadays is like one roast beef sandwich is like 14 or $15, and you're like, you
Oh, I
gotta.
know.
It's so expensive to take your family out to eat. You like you gotta secretly go do it by yourself and don't tell your family you're going because you don't want to pay for everybody else.
Right. Yeah, like paying cash.
Yeah, exactly. Same kind of deal. Yeah, that's interesting. It's like Cane's, right? Have you heard of Cane's, the chicken finger place?
Oh yeah, yeah. I love canes.
Like, there's such a simple menu. They have chicken fingers. What do they have? Chicken fingers, like sides of garlic bread and fries. That's literally the entire menu.
Yeah, yeah. Like comes with toast and like a little two
Toast, yeah.
ounce container of coleslaw.
Yeah, that's it. It's so much easier to do. Like that guy has built a huge business. It's amazing to see.
Yeah, they have a really good business. That guy's really interesting. I've heard him on a couple other podcasts. He does some close work with a restaurant consultant that I follow. He's got a pretty cool business model, and from what I can tell, it's very much based in a lot of things you talk about, like community involvement,
Yeah,
um, giving back to the community. Everywhere that they open a restaurant, they end up doing, some kind of major initiatives where they're like, buying bikes and giving them to kids that don't have bikes or, stuff like
yeah,
that. That's really cool. It's it's inspiring to see this as sort of a trend. It seems like that is somewhat of a secret sauce with successful restaurants today. Um, a lot of community involvement and a lot of like giving back and service in the community. It seems to be one of those common threads that a lot of the successful places have nowadays.
yeah. I like that. Pizza shops have done that for a long time. Well, maybe not outspoken about it, but when you're on a local pizzeria, every day somebody's coming in and asking for something part of the community, and you always say yes, like whether it's a gift card or some pizzas for their event. I think we need to, as a community and pizza owners, be like a little bit more on the offense about it and being like, all right, how can we be a part of this and like talk about that we're a part of it. A lot of times it's like we're just behind the scenes and yeah, we donate some pizzas or some gift cards and we're just kind of like, all right, here you go, you're welcome, and we don't talk about it. Sometimes I think we need to talk about it a little bit more.
Well, yeah, and nowadays with social media and just sort of the way that things are with everything being so out in the open and visual, in order to compete, I think you have to probably leverage that a little bit, um, just just to stay relevant and like
Yeah,
stay like reminding people that you exist. Like, hey, like we're part of the community, like hey, like we're here, like we're helping out, like we're sponsoring little league teams or whatever. um you know not to say that like that's the only reason you should do it. I don't think it should just primarily be used as like a sleazy marketing tactic, but
right.
I think it probably is necessary to, like you said, be a little bit more in your face about it, just because everything is an opportunity now to, kind of show off a little bit and show people that you're around, and, remind people that you're relevant.
I think you could look at it a different way too. Like, I understand what you're saying about like feeling like it's a sleazy thing to kind of donate and then talk about your donation, but maybe you should look at it like I'm proud that I'm donating. Like I'm proud of the
For
fact that
sure.
my business was able to be a part of this little league softball or baseball team. It's not like I'm trying to promote myself, but like I'm proud of what they're doing, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to run a business in this community, and I can do that.
Yeah, and like we want to do it and come at us with more opportunities
Yeah,
to do it, because we're that restaurant that wants to help.
exactly. And I think that's a huge thing. I was talking to somebody else on a podcast the other day. He did relief because the hurricane, not this one that just hit, but the one that hit before a couple weeks ago. It was
Yeah.
it like kind of came up through, Tennessee and Atlanta.
Yeah. Helene.
He did a huge campaign of uh, donations of food and a GoFundMe page, and I think he ended up raising like $15,000 or $20,000, and then hundreds of thousands of pounds of food donated to the
Wow.
families in need in that area, which was pretty amazing for him. And he was just like a single shop owner, doesn't have a huge business. It's not like he's got tons of business coming in or money or this big huge corporation. It's just one single guy operating. He's like, I want to do something, and he just took advantage, not took advantage, but like took the bull by the horns and is like, I'm doing this. It was amazing to see.
Yeah, and as a natural byproduct of people, potential customers hearing about that, you want to go support that shop, you
Yeah,
know? Like it's just kind of how things work. Like I hear about that, I'm like, man, that's great. Like I want to go buy a pizza from that guy.
yeah, exactly. It's like I want to be if I can support him because of what he does, then I'm going to go do that.
Right. Right.
What? So let's talk about your pizza for a second. 'Cause we haven't talked too much about pizza. I'm looking at your
Yeah.
Instagram right here, and this New York style pizza looks pretty awesome. And I know, but I've had you on the podcast before, and your square pizzas look great too. You do a good job of taking photos, by the way, on Instagram.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, it's it's so important now to master that. And I don't even think my photos are like the best or whatever, but I think that they're good enough to put on Instagram. But it's so important. Like people eat with their eyes, and
Yeah,
especially on social media, like you're really showcasing your product. Um, so like lighting is very important, and a little bit of post processing the photos. Um, not like filtering it to death, but tweaking it a little bit to make the lighting optimal and that kind of stuff. I mean, it can mean the difference between 20 likes on a photo and 200 likes on a photo, and that drives business.
yep. Because if more people see it, the more people that see your photo, the more likely they're gonna want to come in and get that pizza. Do you do you use the same dough for your squares and the round?
No.
Separate
um,
doughs?
Separate dough, separate flour, really separate process from the get-go. Different hydration, different everything.
Oh wow.
So that's been the biggest challenge in launching this new style for us. Because we operationally, like, we really nailed down the Detroit dough and the process for that, the timing, the rise, um, storage, all of that stuff, and got it down to a science to where we really didn't have to think about it. It was just kind of on autopilot.
Right.
And then introducing this new style, which is basically from start to finish a completely different process. It's been a big challenge integrating that um, and establishing these processes. It almost kind of feels like starting over. um, but just juggling more. It's like you're juggling three, and then someone throws a fourth in, and you're like, all right, we got to keep all the balls in the air now.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. Which one's easier to do, the square or the round?
I think the squares probably because, and I'm so grateful that we started with the squares because um, they require a lot less skill on the line. A lot of the skill that's required in producing those pizzas happens on the front end in prep.
Yeah.
So, by the time a proofed square pie gets to the line for service, and you're dressing it, topping it with whatever it is you're topping it, you don't, the pan does all the heavy lifting. Like you don't have to handle the dough, you don't have to stretch it, you don't have to, toss it or whatever. You just grab it and throw toppings on, and then throw it in the oven, and it's good to go. So in that sense, we didn't have to worry a whole lot about gumming up our line for service. Things there weren't as many growing pains,
Yeah.
operationally, logistically. And then New York style, it's kind of flip side. Like there's maybe a little bit less skill required on the prep side. um, you know, it's portioning and balling and mixing, and then throwing it in the cooler for a long ferment, and then the work kind of begins when you pull it and you start to, handle the dough on the line.
Yeah.
Um, there's strategy involved in that and a lot of training. And I had to, get out of the office and get up on the line and practice a lot because I had to make sure that when I was establishing and developing systems for these, for my cooks, that I knew what I was talking about and that I could actually do it. Um, I don't think I'm the fastest. Like if they threw me in on the line, on a busy Friday night, I might slow them down a little bit, but at least like I know, how to do it.
Right.
And so I've had to practice a good amount too. But it's been fun, man. It's a different speed. I've really enjoyed, the research and the development. Um, getting this style going has been it's been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun.
Has it been well received by the existing customers?
It has, and I think ultimately, aside from just like creative motivations to get it going, and just kind of coming from a place I've always wanted to serve the New York style pizza,
Yeah.
but also it made sense from like a business standpoint too. I think just limiting ourselves to Detroit style, pan style, square pizza. I felt that we were cutting ourselves off from potentially 50% or more of the pizza eating population that is maybe just not interested in eating pan pizza. And it's to me, it's like when you're developing a menu or coming up with a restaurant concept, it's important to not give anybody an out, like not give anybody a reason to not eat with you.
Right.
So if you have a group of people and they're looking at a menu and then one person's like, oh well, they don't have any salads, then that vetoes the entire group. Like
Right.
that group can't go there now.
Right.
So you kind of have to have like a veto friendly menu where there's just something for everyone. Um, I think it's important to balance that with also having a small and simple menu because you don't want to have the Cheesecake Factory effect where it's like overwhelming and nobody knows what to order.
Right.
But and Cheesecake Factory crushes that. They do it so well. It's like
I don't know
amazing
how
to
they do
me.
that. With such a big
Yeah.
company too.
Yeah, they get multiple trucks every day and they prep everything. It's like it's kind of wild. But
I would rather die than do that as a business.
right? I know it just sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But but uh but I think it's helped us a lot. We've seen an uptick in business. I don't want to exclude anybody. So like if we're just serving square pizza and someone's like, I don't really want thick pizza tonight. I don't want to give that person a reason to not come here.
Right.
So from a business perspective, it's made a lot of sense too for us to offer both.
I agree because I love Detroit square pizza. Like I love it, but I couldn't eat it multiple times a week. New York style,
Mm.
I could. I could get pizza. I could definitely see myself getting pizza twice a week from a New York style. And it's not that I don't like Detroit style. It's just I feel like it's a little bit too much for me.
Well, Detroit style is also a tough sell sometimes. For lunch, it's tough. We do lunch specials and we have like combos like slice and half salad and a drink for, blah blah blah. And the New York slices have been selling a lot better at lunch because they're not as heavy.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so,
could see
if
that.
you've got 30 minutes away from work and then you're looking at a full afternoon trying not to take a nap. um, New York style and a half salad is probably what you're going to want, as opposed to maybe two slices of Detroit where you're like walking out the door feeling really heavy. Um,
Right.
but uh, but also like sometimes during the summer, Detroit can be a tough sell because it's just so thick and it retains heat so well, and it's hot and gooey and you know a thin crust a crispy thin crust is a little bit of an easier sell in the hot Alabama summertime. Um, but then, the Detroit sells really well during the winter
Yep.
time when everybody needs like the comfort, cozy
Yep.
food. So
You got a good mix there. Like if you can do two of those really well, and I think that's a great mix because then you can, like you said, you don't need 1,000 items on your menu, but you need a couple strategic ones so you don't, like you said, you don't get the veto of someone. They don't have this. I'm not going there.
right, right. And ultimately for us, the biggest challenge has just been the execution of the two, especially since they require different doughs, completely different processes, different handling. Um, Establishing those things and ironing out all the kinks has been tough, but we were just really intentional and slow with the rolling out of the New York. We started doing it on Tuesdays only, and that was like for a few months. That was just like our New York style day. We hadn't told anybody that we were going to roll it out full time, and then we started just kind of teasing it a little bit on
Yeah.
social media, and people come in and try it, and they like it, and then we're like, okay, well look out for it on the menu, for like full time or 7 days, and that helped to build momentum. I think if we had tried to just roll it out full time immediately, really quickly, we probably would have fallen on our faces. It would have been ugly. So
Smart though. Smart to do it slow because then you can like work out the kinks slowly.
yeah, it was essential for us to do it that way because we've made that mistake before with other things. Just get really excited about something and throw it out, and just get completely run over and destroyed. And it's, as an operator, there's no worse feeling than, going for the big acrobatic maneuver and just falling on your face.
Story of my life.
Right, right. We all know what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's just about avoiding it now. So,
That's great. I totally agree with that. George, this has been fun. I don't want to take too much of your time up, but where should people go? I know on Instagram you are Uncle G's Pizza. Is that your
yep.
website too?
Yeah, UncleG'sPizza.com. Facebook is at Uncle G's Pizza, and Instagram is at Uncle G's Pizza.
Those Instagram probably the best place if someone's listening to this to kind of hit you up, ask a question, or maybe in the Facebook group too. Actually, you know what? Go to the Facebook group. George, you're in there, right?
Yeah, I'm in there. George
Yeah.
Gilliam. Yeah, Instagram is where we like to hang out for sure. Facebook too. We're 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 very online, as they say. So we're not hard to find.
That's great. We'll link all that up in the show notes as well. George, thank you so much for hanging out with me on the podcast. Don't hang up yet, but I appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Well, first off, I want to say thank you for watching, and thank you, George, for joining me on the podcast. I love talking to pizza operators and kind of figuring out what they're going through. The one thing that I took away from this episode is that, and this isn't just from this episode, this is from all of the episodes that I've ever done. Nobody ever has it all figured out. You may think you have it figured out, but then something changes. Your marketing, your dough, your foot traffic, the type of year it is. Like we're in election year right now, and everybody's saying that times are slow. And as pizza shop owners, we need to be able to pivot quickly. You are an independent pizzeria, and that gives you the ability to make fast decisions, faster decisions than corporations can make. But we need to be surrounded with the right information, the right people, the right motivation in order to do that. So a couple things. Join our Facebook group. It's free. It's owners only. No selling anything, no harassing you to buy this or buy that. It's just a place for you to go hang with other pizza operators, learn what's working, ask some questions, and maybe help out some other folks, because that's what the pizza community is all about, helping each other out. And that's what I hope to do with this podcast moving forward, with me as one of the co-hosts. And I'm super excited for that journey to continue. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast, and stay tuned because we have so much more to come at you in the coming weeks.